Okay. Well, greetings, everybody. Thanks so much for being here with us today. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Joelle Pitts, and I'm the Senior Associate Dean for the Carnegie Mellon University Libraries, and I am delighted today to be your moderator on behalf of the IATUL Leadership Special Interest Group, or SIG-L, for what promises to be a fascinating and insightful discussion about innovation from esteemed library leaders representing three continents. So before we get started, we would love for you to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. We don't want to necessarily prevent questions kind of free flowing in, but we will be monitoring the chat. And we encourage you to put your questions in there, which we will then collate for the panelists after the first few questions. We are planning this session as, of course, a follow-up to a really fantastic panel in Shanghai last fall. But the SIG-L group is planning to continue this conversation on innovation throughout the year with similar sessions and potentially a set of follow-up sessions at the next IATUL conference this November in Johannesburg. All right. So I am absolutely thrilled to reconvene this group of exceptional library leaders as of course, a follow-up to the session in Shanghai. For those of us who were fortunate enough to attend the conference in person, we were able to learn from folks all over the world about cutting-edge technology, applications, and other innovations all across different types of research and university libraries. And of course, AI was front and center in a lot of those conversations. But what I think made this panel really fascinating is that while our panelists did, mention and touch on some of the AI projects and innovations that they are leading or, seeing happening in their libraries, the panel really focused on more on the spirit of innovation, the mindset of innovation, and what we can do as library leaders to encourage that in our organizations. And so I'm again delighted to welcome back Dr. Matthew Moyo. He is the Chief Director of Library and Information Services at Northwest University in South Africa. Caroline Pang, University Librarian at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, and Carol Smith, who is the Dean of Libraries at the University of Kansas Libraries in the U.S. And unfortunately today, Xiaojing Zhu, Assistant Provost and Library Director at NYU Shanghai, was going to join us, but she is actually out sick today. So we will miss her voice, but we wish her a swift recovery. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I've got everyone else here in the waiting room added to the meeting, and then we will go ahead and kick off with our questions. All right. Panel. Our Shanghai session was incredibly interesting. We had lots of people come up to us after the session wanting more, wanting some more insights into sort of the innovative work and the mindsets, and the mindset shifts at your respective institutions in reflecting on our time in Shanghai and our panel discussion in particular. What inspired you? What stayed with you or altered your thinking about how you approach innovation in your library after our time in Shanghai? And I will start with Carol, and then we will shift to then Caroline and then Matthew. Oh, Carol, you're muted.
Yeah, off mute now. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us all to continue this really important conversation. And thank you for everyone who was able to join us at IATL. It was indeed a lively panel session. One of the things that I took away from it is in a panel session, of course, you can only just begin to talk on a topic, but it was very clear that it hit a touchstone, that it resonated with so many people because there were conversations that were just continuing throughout the rest of that webinar. And what I realize is, the big takeaway for me is that innovation in libraries is something that we're all always continuously doing, but we're also very much in a moment. We're all very much thinking about innovation. We are thinking about the pace of change. We are approaching it from our own perspectives, from our own cultures. We're recognizing that many of us are active in this space, that we need to be active in this space, that it is very timely and topical, and that we each bring our own unique perspectives and angles to the work. And I think this is the big takeaway for me. There really is no one right way, no single way to approach and to foster an innovation mindset in libraries. The work literally contains multitudes. And this, I hope, too, is still just the opening in a long, extended, deepening conversation because by starting to bring our own unique experiences and perspectives together, I think we can be really on the edge of building something significant. Um, just to let you know, and some of you may have been there, but the Association of Research Libraries in North America just led a 2-day President's Institute on Fostering Innovation. It was held in Chicago. This is an annual, very much hands-on workshop that's led by the incoming ARL president, and I was lucky enough to be on the planning task force. It was clear to me coming out of that 2 days of not just talking about innovation, but working with your hands on innovation also isn't sufficient. But it was also clear from the energy in that space that people are keen to know how can we cultivate innovation? How can we nurture it? How can we accelerate it? How can we recognize and reward it? But I think this will be my final observation. Very importantly, how can we also put our critical thinking caps on and be skeptical of innovation? One of our two keynote speakers at that institute was Lee Vinsel, who wrote a book called The Innovation Delusion, which I highly recommend. Innovation is important, change is important, but not for its own sake. And there is certainly a lot of that happening right now. And so I think one of the critical thinking questions, we're in a critical thinking discipline for all of us, is to ask ourselves as we're navigating change, is this meaningful change? Is it the right change? Um, what if its benefits have been exaggerated? All those good questions. And the flip side of that coin is making sure as we navigate change, we're still valuing the maintainer's work, the sustainer's work, the daily work that brings value to our libraries and not dropping that in terms of the shiny new object. So lots of stuff banging around the head, lots of stuff for us to be talking about over the course of the year.
Thanks, Carol. Caroline, any thoughts from you on this question?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about, like what Carol had said, foster and cultivate innovation, and unfortunately, being innovative is a being, it's not like a real practice that we can gain the competency in. It's not as if like, you practice 10,000 hours of Kung Fu or you go through your brown belt, your whatever belt, and suddenly you're the black belt, and then you gain some kind of competency. I think innovation is not such, but we need to cultivate in such a way that the environment is right, that people are encouraged to think and yes, we need some meaningful kind of critical thinking, so lately I've been thinking about, okay, maybe if we take a step back, what would be the important ingredients to cultivate innovation. So one of which I would say that is curiosity, and I think curiosity is very important, but curiosity is hard to sort again, it's something very intangible. How do I get my staff to be curious? So when I ask myself that, I'll say that, oh, okay, I need to give them time to be curious because when you're always fighting a deadline, when you're always fighting to work, when you always have like back-to-back meetings, you have no time to think and no time to wonder and no time for curiosity. So I thought, okay, maybe I should start this, last Friday of the month is a no meetings month. Okay, up to them, I don't say that it's a must, but I encourage my staff to say, how about every last Friday of the month, we have no meetings. Okay, everyone agrees to it. And you have some time to yourself, okay, to do whatever you want. Okay, no, sort of, but you still have to work. Right? It's not a free day, it's not a holiday. It's just that, without a meeting, maybe you would relax a little bit and be curious. And through the curiosity, I hope that you can ponder a little bit about maybe think about problem solving, think about something or something that has been in the back of your mind or back burner that you want to chew on it a little bit more, then maybe that's a good time to do that. And also talking to other people. If we don't talk to other people, you don't get inspired and you don't really think that, you don't have that kind of like a aha moment because it's quite difficult to be innovative alone because we're not geniuses. Yeah, okay. But anyway, yeah, that's what I've got to say as an opening to say that maybe one of the key ingredients is that I'm looking at is curiosity.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Caroline. Matthew.
Thank you, Joel, and your team for having us here again on this very critical topic. The Shanghai conversation around this theme was quite inspiring to an extent that we were, as an institution where I am, prompted to bring back this aspect to the fore, to bring it back high on our agenda so that we can have intentional and deliberate innovation. To start with, I think we have as one of our key pillars research and innovation at the institutional level. But when we take it down to the library environment, we still find innovation right on our strategic statements. But prior to the Shanghai conference, we had not been talking much or a lot much about innovation. But after this conference, every forum that we have at different levels, we are talking about innovation. We are talking about resilience. We are talking about best practice so that we can meet the needs of our users. So for me, the conversation is quite critical so that innovation is not just unintentional. It can also be planned. It can also be made to be sustainable. So that it can go a long way in assisting us to address a number of issues, whether in our services, whether in our process flows, whether in our staff skills. Anything that we touch should have an aspect of innovation. I'll pause here for now.
That's fantastic. Thank you all for your opening remarks here. I think the themes that we're hearing reflect a lot of what we were hearing in Shanghai in terms of innovation as a mindset, encouraging curiosity, um, innovation as a competency. That one I wrote down and I found very interesting and something I want to explore later. I wonder if we could talk a little bit about how we encourage that mindset in tumultuous times, in difficult times. A lot of us are facing uncertainty, stress, fear, even helplessness, I think, in our various contexts. And what can we do as library leaders to encourage innovation, to encourage curiosity in their libraries during times like these? Um, if anyone wants to jump in, I would be happy to hear from you. Otherwise, maybe I'd call on Caroline to kick us off on this one.
Yes, I think we're always not having enough time to do anything. I myself today had two meetings concurrently. I don't know how I did it, but I kind of did it, and it was quite weird to have to talk to one person and another person, and we're always uh, you know, uh, having this type of time, chasing time, chasing daylight, chasing sunlight. So I think intentionally, we have to have that block of time that you have to block it out and say that, okay, in this time, okay, I will have to do something, uh, and think about things. It's a safe space. You can think about anything you like or call another colleague that knows something that's niggling you. So it's a little bit of problem. You might start off with just like a problem solving or something that you wonder. I think um I like the word wonder because I think it's good when staff say, I wonder if, I wonder why, and that goes into the curiosity part. So I would say that for us, and I am a true believer that if I don't, if my staff cannot eat together, play together, they cannot do anything together. Work together will be very officious and very, very it's just very distant and cold, and you're not going to get much of that there because you need people who complain a bit, who want to vent a bit, who want to tell you their problems, and you want to share problems, and maybe something comes up from there. So innovation is not neat. I think it comes from a place where, like after curiosity will be trust, so so I always tell my staff it's very important when we have an event, and I always tell the organizers, please have food because that's what brings people together, and it really breaks down quite a lot of barriers, and I always then we talk a little bit about the leader, so as a tone, as the leader walking the talk, I must talk about some of my fears, some of my thinking as well, sharing with them what I'm worried about, and what that, all that, to be vulnerable and authentic. And that will encourage the rest of my people to talk like that as well, to say that, hey, I'm worried about AI taking over my job, and then they hear different views and maybe, you surface to something, So I think it's good to have that kind, and sometimes just talking about your fears put you in a place where you have a little bit more control. So I think as a leader, we have to set that authenticity and that kind of transparency and vulnerability as well, but not appear weak. Okay, so that's the interesting balance that I have to do, to actually tell them, oh, this is going on, and my challenge is this, and open up to the floor sometimes, to tell everybody that actually when you solve something, it's good to have more people and hearing more diverse views. Do not shut down the voices, have diverse views, and with that, you actually have more wisdom of the crowd. I always believe in that. Yeah. So I would say we have to play together, eat together, and then, we start, talking and having that mindset that we can help each other. The trust must be established. I don't think we can sit in a room and say, let's brainstorm. That's not true. I don't think we can have the kind of true innovation or breakthrough through that. Yeah.
That is so true, and I love how you frame that: eating together, playing together, and being vulnerable together. It's a really great point. Thanks, Caroline. Matthew, any thoughts on this question?
Thank you, Joel. As you asked the question, I looked back at where we're coming from for the past 10 years. I think we have had a lot of challenges. We have had students' protests that have led to closure of our libraries across campuses. We then gone into the COVID-19 pandemic. And prior to that, we were talking about the fourth industrial revolution, developments in AI, right up to where we are now, where the topical issue is in most cases AI. So I I asked myself, how have we survived all these difficult times? And I think it takes a lot of wisdom. It requires leadership to be on top of the game and inspire confidence, inculcate a culture of learning into your staff, have a mentality that says we can do it no matter what. Caroline says it's not something that you can brainstorm, but at times you need to sit in a room and say what ideas can take us to the next level, and you listen to colleagues from different sections, different entities, talking to things that they think will take us to the next level. I would also want to emphasize teamwork, team spirit, be guided by institutional values, make value driven decision. And also you need to value each contribution, each innovation, no matter how small it is. Join campus-wide innovation initiatives. Normally, there are Innovation Week or Innovation Summit that are conducted on campuses. It's important to join such forums so that you can learn, and it is through learning that we have survived this long.
So true. We use the phrase in the US, celebrate the small wins, and that's something that I too identify with very much in terms of lifting up the work of our colleagues, no matter how small or seemingly uh, unstrategic something might be. Carol, any insights into this question in terms of fostering innovation in times of stress?
Yeah.
Strife.
Yeah, I don't know about insights, but maybe some deep sharing. And I think we are touching upon a really important topic here. I'll be some truth telling. I asked for this question to be added to the panel session because when we spoke at the panel session in Shanghai, the space I was in at that moment, I was just full of pride at what my amazing team was accomplishing, how they were collectively and collaboratively crafting this whole new way of advancing strategic initiatives together. And I do hope to do a deep presentation on that someday. But to be quite honest with folks, and I think it's important for us to have tough conversations. My team has had a little bit of a cultural backslide since Shanghai, since November. And the specifics don't really matter so much as just sharing a hard-learned truth. Maybe it's a truth that I'm still learning, which is that old cultural waters can really run deep in an institution. Layers of mistrust that have been there for years, long before perhaps you arrived as a leader, can run deep. And even when the change that you are introducing into a culture, an innovative change, is clamored for by the team, like they all desire it, they all want it. There's still the changes you make, you may think they're implemented, but they're surface waters and there's stuff that runs deeper that can very easily rise up to the top and put literally years of careful cultural work at risk. And I think that's especially true in the times that we're describing, right? That Matthew has described so well. I mean, for those of you familiar with everything that's going on in the US, I can tell you that ICE has arrived in Lawrence, Kansas. We're not a big city. But ICE has arrived in Lawrence, Kansas, and I have a team of international librarians who are coming to my office every day, including yesterday, and they're afraid, they're in pain. And the question that I'm asking myself, and I think we can all work on together, is can you and how do you further and foster innovation, which we need to do, right? We need to keep pace with the rapidly changing world, and higher ed doesn't, those wheels don't change fast enough. at a time when our people are just feeling vulnerable and afraid, and their wages aren't high enough. They're concerned about feeding their families. Like literally, can the two things go hand in hand? And so that's some of what I am actually living right now. And I would hope that I'm not the only one out there living this. I mean, I really value this as a community, so I look forward to the Q&A and hearing what other people are experiencing and how do we can't make people fully well in a time of uncertainty, but how do we do the work and take care of our teams? And I'll just close out to say like a related lesson that I'm learning is the loudest voices are not the only ones. The quieter voices can be the majority of finding a way to elevate and amplify their voices so that the important work can go forward and that natural like undertow can be managed with care and sensitivity, right? Like Joelle said, we celebrate the small wins. My motto is we'll get there. And if necessary, I don't say this, but I'll meet you on the other side of things. Like nothing is personal, but this work is hard. And I think it's particularly hard given the times. And I just want to be honest and acknowledge that.
Thank you so much for your candor, Carol. It is really hard to navigate, especially these current times. Or at least I'm feeling you here as a fellow American on that front. Um, and I think it relates back to one of Caroline's points is, how can we acknowledge what's going on and be vulnerable together, as a way to build trust. And again, I appreciate your candor on that one.
Mm.
All
Yeah, I
right.
think,
Oh,
as an institution, we have this value of courage, and a lot of us wonder why do we need courage? But actually, it's very important, because courage is that other ingredient that lets you take that one little step towards something that you fear, that that you're curious about. So courage at these times, we need to remember how to other than inspire, to give people courage, to know that times are tough, and that you need that courage to just take that one step, and sometimes things will change, right? Yeah, you cannot stand still. You cannot just cower in fear because you're not going to help anyone, including yourself. And maybe if you feel isolated, then you take the courage to find someone else, to confide in someone else, to talk about this and take the step together. And as leaders, we must always watch these lines and see that, oh, they have fought their fear, and now we must give them courage, and not really encouragement, but courage to take that one step towards that, and feel that sense of, achievement, and that could be a virtuous cycle. So I think from, it breaks my heart to hear that, ICE now is in Kansas, because I've got friends who were affected by ICE, and oh, sorry to say this, but Trump is mad. He's crazy guy going after everyone, right? Yeah, and inciting a lot of fear. So in times of fear, you're in a survival mode, and therefore you really need to have people stand their ground, create some space for them if we can, and then and tell them that it's time for that personal courage that they have to really practice that. Yeah, when you are in a survival mode, you cannot practice any kind of innovation, I think, because you are in that survival mode. You're thinking, I need to survive. And when you want to survive, you might get resourceful, but that's not innovation. That's what I think. Innovation needs a safe space. So it's very interesting. I always when I heard Nelson Mandela, who has been jailed for so many years, and he said, and so people ask him, how did you feel? What is your sense of freedom? What's your interpretation of freedom? And he said something very interesting. He said, even though my body was in jail, but my mind was free, and he never felt imprisoned at all. So I thought that was very enlightening, and I wonder if ever I'm in a position of fear or stuck, being stuck or trapped, or I'm just all seized up and not thinking forward or looking forward, I would think of him and say that my mind is free. My body may not be. I have some physical danger, maybe I have some physical challenges, but my mind is free. And I can do anything with my mind, think anything with my mind. And maybe in that moment of freedom of the mind, right, you can actually be a little bit innovative. You can actually tell myself that, it's not just about existing, it's just not about surviving, but maybe you have a great idea, and it might start from there. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Caroline and Carol. Really inspiring, and hopeful, which I think a lot of us need right now, just to work through some of the exhaustion that we're feeling of, constant change and having to sort of push through, some of these ideas, and put on a strong front for our faculty and staff. How do we do that, right? That's my next question here. Let's talk about how we innovate, especially in this context. So I'm wondering if the panel could share with us an example of an innovative project or a practice that didn't go as expected. How did you in your library absorb that failure, for lack of a better word, and what did you learn from the process? And for this one, maybe I'll kick off with Matthew.
Okay. So Joel, I think one can never learn from success. You learn from failures, and usually the comeback is much stronger than the setback itself. In terms of how do we innovate within our library spaces, I have already indicated that this has to be quite intentional. It has to start with your strategy, have innovation as one of the cross-cutting pillars of your strategy, then have a full review of all your core areas. I normally refer to our core areas as the 5 S's in services. Number one, have a very good review of your services, have innovative ideas to change from the way we used to do things in the past, and embrace the current. Then look at staff skills, look at your spaces, look at your sources of information, the way you acquire, the way you process them, embracing new things throughout the value chain of your services. As an example, we undertook to develop an in-house robot a few years back. I think it was just before the advent of COVID-19. It was not a complete failure, but we could not meet our target for a number of reasons. And we learned from some of the mistakes that we identified throughout the period. Up to now, that project is still ongoing, but the truth is we missed our initial target because we were focusing on 3 years, but this has since passed. But through learning, we are continuing with that project. We have acquired other robots from the market, but we are so passionate about the one that we are developing ourselves because we want this robot to speak in our 4 official languages of the university. So we are passionate about that initiative, despite the fact that we failed to meet our target. But I believe we learned a lot of lessons from the mistakes we made, and we corrected that, and the project is going on.
That's great. Thank you. I wrote down passion and values infused failure. And I think I'm going to maybe use some of that terminology with some of my teams who are struggling right now with some of our innovative projects. Carol, any insights into this one for us?
Yeah, so example of something that didn't go as expected. I wouldn't call this a failure, but it's certainly making me think about how we navigate innovation in a time of unfolding change. So this is nothing terribly novel, but we at the University of Kansas Libraries have been running a 2-year pilot subscription to SITE, SCITE, which is one of those new AI assisted research tools. And we said, okay, we're going to try this for 2 years, and we've thrown everything we can at it, all the marketing, the communication, folding it into our instruction sessions, engaging with faculty about it, everything, you name it, to get our users using it, providing feedback, seeing what they think, seeing how it can contribute to the libraries. We're now kind of coming up to the final lap of our 2-year pilot subscription. And what we didn't fully anticipate is that, there's all these new competing tools out there now or on the horizon. And we are recognizing and working with this one tool that we invested in, some limitations to it and some possibilities in other products. And so at the end of this pilot, we would like to shift to another tool. And we're currently discussing which. Here's the problem. Our faculty and our students are now using it. They like it. They like to cite and talk about the fact that they are using it. So in a way, the pilot has been a success story. And the question for us is, it's like a success and a problem. How do you help your user base adopt experimental tools without getting too attached to them? Because some of these tools are going to be relegated to the Netscape Navigator land of the future, right? And we don't know which ones those are. And so right now we're debating, we'd really like to give them another alternative, but they're invested, and I don't think we fully thought that through. And so I guess not a failure, but I would share that as maybe a lesson to consider when implementing innovation is how do you guide your users through continual change and piloting and experimenting? It's not just us on the backside. It's their experience as well, and we want to make sure that that is a positive one.
For sure. Yeah, product management, product lifestyle management is not something they teach us in library school. So, having to implement some of these types of practices, I think is difficult for a lot of us. So thank you for that. Caroline, any thoughts on this question?
Yeah, so like Matthew, we're fond of our robots as well. We've got 3 of them. We call them concierge robots. So these robots actually roam our libraries, sort of like a very advanced vacuum cleaner, because once it has low power, you go to home base and start charging itself. But with these robots, we can do quite a few things. The users can actually video call us on the robot from the robot screen. We can actually remote control the robot from a central location and go to someone and say, hello, you're not wearing your mask. During the COVID time when we had to check that people were wearing the mask, it was quite useful. Yeah. So, and if you talk to the robot and say, hey, give me a tour of the library, we actually managed to program wayfinding into our robots as well. So, I'm watching this development of robots, because I think it's a very interesting development, in AI actually. And you see these, I don't know if they're fake or not, these amazing robots dancing and doing other things, and there'll be one day I think that, well, I would like my robot to work for me and not the other way. And I think that's what uh, matter, I know that fellow wants to do. And so he's saying that the future of work is robots working for us, and we should just collect the pay. So let's see. Yeah, and Elon Musk, yeah, I think he said that. Yeah, so I kind of like, oh, I like your idea. If you can build a robot of me and earn my pay, I'll be happy to send my robot to work. Yeah, and the other part about Carol talking about um, this how do we get our staff, really to I've got my site story as well. So I've been resisting subscribing to site for 2 years. So I guess you're a forerunner. Yeah, and because to me, site was something that my team and I thought that it is a tool, but we were wondering how does it all what role does it play in all our other kinds of tools that we have, right? So we decided that we'll hold off, sure, a lot of people are going on with site and everything. There's a free version, but the one that is subscribed is really good. So our strategy, which I guess where the innovation was, is that okay, let's look at all these tools. What is it that's important that we want to teach our students or bring some awareness from our students? And we realize that we need to actually take for our students to think critically about AI tools, which are always having many, many new ones. So this year, what we're going to do is buy three of them. Okay. And then, okay, we're going to say these are just AI tools, right? You can see for yourself, play around with it and see that these AI tools, have different kinds of pros and cons. We're not going to tell you really what it is, but underlying it all, okay, keep in mind that research integrity is very important. Okay, honesty is very important in your work. Okay, learning how to use these type of tools and be safe, and feel confident when you cite them, and that your lecturer or your faculty understand that you are using these tools to achieve something, right? And it cannot think for you. It should not think for you. And um, I tell you, the students at the moment, we're very worried because our students are doing silly things like asking ChatGPT to have they throw in their whole essay or term paper and they tell ChatGPT, please create a reference list. And then they stick it at the end of the essay and they hand it in. And they get into all kinds of trouble, right? And we were also thinking that if what if the students say that, oh, I use the tool that the library subscribe? Where am I wrong? Is the library wrong? The library has a sense of, the role of being a trusted source, right? Whatever we provide, it must be something that is safe, is trusted, just like the librarian, right? So we approach it in such a way that we'll say that, okay, we are going to position these as tools, right? There'll be many other tools, like, a lot of researchers use Research Rabbit. Okay, but they must be underlying it all, right? They must understand what is academic integrity, what is research honesty, and etc. And they must feel safe and ready to use these tools, right? And what it means for them. So we thought this approach is a little innovative, and sometimes I think it's important. No, not doing something is as important as doing something. So we watch the landscape of NTU and say, I think this year they are ready for research tools. All of us are, including the librarians. We'll be able to answer all the questions. We'll be able to guide the students. So we actually release all the guides on ethical use of AI and ethical use of AI tools and put it all out there first, and we're thinking of, so instead of, okay, we love LEAP guides, right? We always make LEAP guides. So we're thinking that, so my team and I are thinking that what about how we communicate it differently? So we thought, okay, every airline before, while during takeoff, you have a safety video. Maybe that's what we need, a safety video on how to use AI tools, and the safety videos are very creative. They'll bring you like basketball court, or go popular places. They're quite interesting, but yet they get their message across, right? It's the same message, that remember your exits, your seat belt, leave all your things when there's a danger. It's the exact same message, but their approach of communicating it is it's very creative, right? It makes you watch it a little bit more and not disregard it because it's quite interesting. Yeah. So we thought, okay, yeah, so creativity and all. So we're thinking we are not going to put out an email that is like, half page long and say do's and don'ts, but maybe what we should do is create a safety video to tell your students that how do you use these tools safely, something like that. So it could be interesting to try something out. I mean, we don't know how to do it or what to do about it, but we thought it's an interesting idea, a safety video for AI. I think the students would watch it because it maybe answers to them a fear that they have, but they do not articulate, or at least you feel that, oh, when you watch this video, you can actually feel safe about using tools, AI tools, and I want to feel that confidence. So maybe that might be a good approach as well. Yeah.
I would watch your video, Caroline.
Thank you.
Perhaps the robot can deliver it also. I think I would settle for the robot who folds laundry. I'll be first in line to buy that one. All right. So I think Matthew addressed one of the questions that came through in the chat. And then I did want to return to one question for the panel. And that is, how do we measure the social impact of innovative services, not just their usage numbers? And Carol had put in the chat impact assessment and kind of using that framework to talk through that. But I wonder, panel, if you might respond a little bit more to this question, just in terms of how we measure innovation. And again, especially in light of, the very rapid change of the technology.
Yeah, so maybe I can start. So whenever we have a library space that we need to revise or revamp, it's not the whole library, we don't have the budget for that, but maybe an area that's a little tired, a little, furniture is not as good anymore. So we always challenge ourselves to think about, other than just replacing the table and chairs, what can we transform this space to? So lately we had this, we're going to launch, I think next month or around March or April, this space that has a concept of a living room, because we believe that students always go to the library to study, but they don't hang out there. It's not cool, right? And frankly, we may not have spaces for them to hang out, really hang out, just having fun, and etc. And of course, the noise level might disturb others, but we're thinking, okay, how about a living room concept? So, uh, I would love to show pictures later, but it's just not ready yet. But generally, I would say that it's an interesting place because there's going to be like a living room, like, so people, in Asia culture, you take off your shoes, so they're going to take off their shoes and sit in these spaces, and it feels like a living room, right? And we have board games for them. And and it's a really beautiful spot. And then we got one of our art students to create a mural for it, and it's really nice. So how do we measure a space like that? Do we measure visitorship? Do we go and say that how many people really use the space? Is that meaningful? Right? It's a space that you need to experience, not to sit in. How many hours do you sit in a chair? How many chairs? Right? It's an place that you need to experience, and therefore that's what we do. We measure the experience, right? We ask students to share their thoughts in a book or somewhere, and then we'll just see how many positive versus negative experiences, you know. And so we are starting to think differently about impact measurement, and we've experimenting with impact narratives. Okay, so instead of saying that 50 people, came for the library workshop, we're starting to measure things like, did they learn? What did they learn? Right? Yeah. Um, and was it effective? Did they feel more confident? Did they feel that the library supported them? Now, these are the impactful statements that we want to measure. Okay, and therefore it starts with assessment, right? What kind of survey questions are we really asking? So we kind of like cheated a little bit. We went to see what the annual student experience survey ask, you know, and we sort of tweaked the questions a little bit to mirror the students' engagement survey, right? So that they started talking about, what was their experience. So maybe as a start, we thought that okay, we'll start measuring experience, and that could be, and rather than just doing some kind of survey again, we thought that, well, we leave it there and let the students express themselves, how much they like the space or not, or what could be improved, so we just leave a notebook there. And then a staff would just go there, flip and count a little bit, but it starts from there, right? Yeah, and then of course we'll still measure visitorship, but in a very non-intrusive way. So, but we are starting to think about impact narratives, which is important, yeah, to report that way rather than say quantitative. So it's a mix of the qualitative and the quantitative, and the impact of the experience on the students, for example. Yeah. And also when we're thinking of how do we do this for faculty as well, right? Faculty, we tend to meet quite individually. Yeah. And how do we measure that kind of that kind of experience for them? Yeah. Yeah.
We're doing some of the same things here, trying to mix that qualitative and quantitative assessment in maybe unique ways with unique questions or more targeted questions so we can build some of those impact narratives. Yeah, thanks, Caroline. Carol or Matthew, any more thoughts on measuring innovation in libraries? And while we're thinking about that, for folks in the chat, if you have any other questions for the panelists, please go ahead and put them in the chat. I have one more prepared question I can pose to the panel, but we would love to hear from the community and have this be a participative discussion here. Thanks, Matthew.
Yeah, so Jolene, at some point in my life, I served as a member of the Students' Disciplinary Committee. And most of the issues that the panel dealt with had to do with unethical practice or malpractice by students in terms of information handling. And that really, because in most cases, students would then be either suspended or expelled for a number of years. And that quite demanded a lot of answers from me as a librarian to say, can't we do something about this? And we started to talk about information literacy, and now we are talking about emerging literacies in terms of AI and so on, data literacy and so on. So I think once you are clear about the social challenge that you want to address, it will be quite easy at the end of the day to measure the impact of your efforts. So down the line, as we started, pushing for information literacy, we could see some improvement, and I still served as a member of that committee. And the numbers started to reduce of students who were being referred for having cheated in terms of referencing and so on and so on. And now we are casting the net wider to cover other emerging literacies so that we can teach students proper information handling skills. So I just wanted to add that you need to be clear from the outset about the issue that you want to solve. And once you define that clearly, I think it will be easy to measure at the end of the day.
Outcomes-based assessment. I love it. I attempt or strive to implement that in some of my assessment work here too. Carol, any thoughts on impact assessment?
I mean, I'll keep it to 30 seconds because I think Caroline and Matthew really addressed it. And I really do want to hear from the folks who have joined us this morning in the time that we have left. But, ultimately, libraries are community platforms, right? That's what they are. They're community platforms for cultivating knowledge, and it's an experience, it's a feeling. And so the easier metrics, I mean, I remember back in the aughts, the Megan Oakleaf days, it was all about metrics and ROI and meeting the decision makers and the budget makers with the language that they speak. But I think we've learned that that just doesn't communicate the full depth and value of what we bring. The type of qualitative, experiential assessment we're talking about is not as easy. It require qualitative. It's a lot of work, but I think there's great value in that, and this is an area I'm really looking to explore in the coming years. We have great stories out there, right? It's all about sharing those stories, understanding those stories, and developing the libraries off of what we learned from those stories.
That's great. Thanks, Carol. Um, Session attendees, if you have any questions for our panelists, please do put those in the chat so we can pose them. We have about 3 minutes left in our scheduled time. So I might just, instead of asking this final question, just ask the panelists if they have any sort of parting words for our attendees today and our potential listeners to the recording later in terms of implementing and being successful at innovation in libraries at this point in time.
Well, I've mentioned in the Shanghai conference that innovation is incremental. Yeah, and you don't have to take big giant steps, or have that big idea, it's just thinking a little differently about something is a different approach, maybe wonder and be curious and say, hey, could we do something else instead of same old, maybe it starts from there, and what's possible for us to do. So it's the kind of thing, and it takes a bit of creativity, a bit of risk taking, definitely courage, and also when you are in a state of fear, maybe community projects like that would help lift the spirits as well. Yeah. So just be incremental, don't pressure yourself to have that one big giant idea. Don't need to be the superhero. If you can, that's great. But if not, a mini superhero, it'll be good. Yeah, just take that one step. And sometimes it just rolls off from someone said something and then you got the idea and then it might just grow, right? Yeah. So I would say the best way of approaching innovation is in a relaxed, curious, open kind of mind, and maybe just wonder and ask ourselves, could we do things a little differently this time around? Yeah, maybe it starts from there.
I would throw in our discipline is not always the best with imperfection. I think we all need to get a lot more comfortable with messiness and vagueness and imperfection and piloting and experimentation. Like that is not failure. And like this is nothing new. We've all heard this, um but I think sometimes that we struggle against many of the deep norms and fundamental principles that are baked into our discipline. So I think we've all got some work to do in that area. Embrace flaws. That's how
Yeah.
we move forward.
Yeah, and have fun. I think librarians do not have enough fun. We do things so seriously, right? We should have fun, yeah. So yeah, so I think if ever I were to host a IATUL conference, the team would be having fun and
But
having
your
fun in the library and librarians being fun.
but
We
your
are so
team needs to
serious.
believe it.
Yeah.
Certainly, certainly. So that's the challenge we will leave with our colleagues here, that you need to embrace innovation. You need to be innovative. Don't be afraid. We have actually survived this long because we are innovative. So let's continue to be innovative wherever we are.
I love that we're ending on that note. Thank you so much, Matthew. Thank you, panelists. Really fantastic discussion today. Thank you for your candor and your sharing your insights on this really, really important work. Thank you again, folks who attended. We will be sending out the recording. I'm not sure what mechanism we'll be doing that in, maybe YouTube, but we'll be in touch with more information and hopefully more sessions like this over the next several months. Thanks again and have a great rest of your day or night.